Chapter 9. When Ethan finally came to, he found himself lying in the infirmary. His head was pounding, and his body ached all over. "Ethan," Naomi said as she leaned up in her chair to look at him, "you're finally awake. How are you feeling?" "What happened?" Ethan asked as he looked around the room. "You put up a good fight, bro," Aiden said as he moved up next to the bed. "But I didn't win, right? Especially not looking like this," Ethan replied as he noticed that his arm was in a sling and bruises covered most of his body. "You're saying that you don't remember what happened?" Naomi asked. "Well, I remember I was in a match with Tony," Ethan replied. "His power was so overwhelming. He used some kind of technique that made it hard for me to move, and I remember thinking that I didn't want this fight to end like this. I tried to put everything I had into fighting against his power, and then I must have blacked out." "Your power increased tremendously during the fight," Naomi explained. "You showed something that I never seen from you before. What do you think caused it?" Aiden asked. "Caused what?" Ethan asked. "What are you two talking about?" "I'm not sure," Naomi replied to Aiden. "I'm not sure what to think about any of this." While Naomi and Aiden talked with Ethan, their mother, Dinah Alexander, entered the room to check up on them. Dinah was a very attractive woman whom Naomi resembled. The difference between the two was that Dinah had long black hair, which she kept pinned up, and solid black eyes. "Ethan," Dinah said as she entered the room, "I came as soon as I heard. How are you feeling, son?" "I've been better," he replied. A few seconds later, the head physician on campus, Dr. Norman Clay, entered the room to check up on his patient. The doctor was an older man, well into his 60s. He had gray hair and was slightly balding. He wore glasses and could always be identified by his white lab coat. "Ethan, I see that you're awake," Norman said as he moved to the foot of the bed. "I hear you were in quite a scuffle this morning," he continued as he looked over his chart. "Dr. Clay, it's good to see you," Dinah said in a cheerful tone. "Naomi, you remember Dr. Clay. And this is my other son, Aiden." "Nice to see you again, Naomi," Norman replied. "And it's good to meet you for the first time, Aiden. I hear you all performed well this morning. It's good to know that the freshman class will be headed up by capable young people." "Thank you, sir," they replied in unison. "I'm glad to know that my son will be well taken care of with you here, Doctor," Dinah expressed. "Well, you don't have to worry about a thing, counselor," Norman replied. "Ethan didn't suffer any severe injuries, so he'll recover nicely. But he does need to rest now, so the visit will have to be cut short," he explained, and then left the room. "You get some rest, Ethan," said Dinah. "We'll be back to check on you later." Dinah, Naomi, and Aiden left Ethan in the infirmary and went to finish the rest of their first day. There wasn't much Ethan could do but try and rest. A few hours later, Ethan received another visit from Joshua Ushida. "Knock, knock," Joshua said as he entered the room. "Ethan, I'm glad to see that you're awake." "Hey, Joshua," Ethan said. "What brings you here?" "Just checking on the top performer of the freshman class," Joshua replied as he took a seat next to the bed. "Is that the word around campus?" Ethan asked. "It is," he replied. "Everyone was amazed by your performance today. I don't think that there's been a more exciting match in years during preliminaries." "Well, I'm glad they enjoyed it," Ethan replied. "But to be honest, I don't remember much about what happened." "So I hear. I spoke to Naomi before I stopped by. How are you feeling right now?" Joshua asked. "Still sore," Ethan replied. "I can't move my right arm much. I guess I'm going to need some time to heal." "Well, I'm sure you'll be back on your feet in no time," Joshua replied. "But not to beat around the bush, the real reason for my visit was to ask you for your help on a matter." "My help?" Ethan replied curiously. "My help for what?" "For the past year, I've been investigating a lot of suspicious activity that's been going on here at the academy. I take it that you've heard the stories, mainly about students disappearing." "I remember Naomi and Alice talking briefly about it before the preliminary started," Ethan replied. "They mentioned it had to do something with a so-called organization that's been recruiting students." "That's right," Joshua replied. "There is a group responsible for it, but no one knows exactly how they operate internally." "Well, Naomi mentioned that your friends, Benny and Rico, had something to do with it," Ethan added. "I know," Joshua replied. "Technically, I do as well." "You?" Ethan asked curiously. "I'm not quite sure I understand." "The name of the organization is called Ghost," Joshua replied. "They recruited me last year." I agreed to join their ranks so that I could try and get closer and uncover the truth about the reason for their existence. But they don't trust me enough to let me gain access to their inner circle. The reason I'm coming to you is because I believe that pretty soon they'll approach you and extend an invitation for you to join them. Why me? Ethan asked. Why is it that they want me? It's because of the potential you showed in your match against Tony. Their entire operation is based on having the best fighters that this academy has to offer on their side. That's why Tony was recruited by them before the semester started. Tony is a part of Ghost? Ethan asked. Yes, he replied. When it comes to what they want and what their true objectives are, I'm not sure. As I explained, I'm on the outside looking in when it comes to the key details. But if you manage to join and gain their trust somehow, you might be privy to more information than I am. I'm not asking you to make a decision now, he explained as he got up from his chair. Let's just keep this between us for right now, if you don't mind. Take some time to think about it, and when you get out of here, let me know. When Joshua left the room, Ethan continued to think about what he said. He wondered what type of threat Ghost posed to the academy. After a while, he concluded that there wasn't much he can do about it now, so he pushed the thought to the back of his mind and focused on getting healthy again. After a day or two, Ethan was able to get out of the bed and move around. His arm was still in a sling. He couldn't do much training, which was frustrating to him. But he did what he could by conditioning his body through one-handed push-ups, sit-ups, light weight training, and whatever else he could do to help pass the time and keep himself in shape until he was cleared to leave the hospital. Chapter 10. A few more days had passed, and Ethan made a call to Joshua to come and pay him another visit so that he could talk more about the role he wanted him to play in this undercover mission. Ethan, Joshua said as he entered the room and saw Ethan doing one-hand pull-ups. I see you're getting back into the swing of things. You wanted to talk to me? Yeah, Ethan replied as he stopped his workout. I thought a lot about what you said, and I need to know more about what you know. What do you mean? Joshua asked. I want to know more about this group, Ghost, Ethan explained. I know that there's something you're not telling me, and if you want my help, I'll have to know more. Joshua examined Ethan for a moment and then moved to close the door so that they could talk in private. What I'm about to tell you hasn't been confirmed yet, but the whispers are that Ghost has produced some kind of special drug that they've been distributing to the students that are a part of their organization, Joshua explained. That is the main concern that we have with this organization. We simply don't know what their true intentions are. What kind of drug? Ethan asked. I guess you can call it a performance enhancer. I wish I could tell you more, Ethan, but I'm still digging for more information. So now do you have a clear understanding of what this means? If something like this was to go public, it could put the academy in a bad light. I know that there are corporations who fund this academy, and if this situation had a bad outcome, then some of them would pull their funding, which could ultimately lead to the shutting down of this institute, Joshua said with a shake of his head. This academy is held to a high standard, and everyone involved in keeping the wheels running accept nothing less. Something like what Ghost is trying to establish can bring down the academy and everything it stands for. So, is that the only reason why you're doing this? Ethan asked as he looked Joshua in the eye. For the good of the academy? Of course, Joshua replied curiously. What makes you think that I will be doing all of this for another reason? Because of your background, Ethan replied. I hear you're a part of the royal family of Dronea, and no offense, but the Droneans only tend to look out for number one. I admit that the reputation of my people isn't a good one. That is one of the main reasons why I'm here, Joshua explained. To change that. I'm destined to be the king of Dronea one day. And when that day comes, my hope is to build bonds with people from other nations and governments so that true peace can be had in the world. So, how about it, Ethan? He said as he extended his hand. Are you willing to help uphold the integrity of this institution and help me uncover the truth of what these people are really doing here? Ethan thought about it for a moment and then smiled slightly as he shook Joshua's hand in agreement. All right, I'm in, Ethan agreed. Good to hear. When you get out of the hospital, I'll catch you up on what we have to do, he explained as he moved toward the door. Get well soon, Ethan. The sun was already starting to set as Joshua left the hospital. He walked through the central courtyard near the campus library. There, he met up with Victor and Anna, who were sitting on a bench, waiting for him to finish his visit with Ethan. "How was your meeting?" Victor asked Joshua as he approached. "It went well," Joshua replied as he took a seat next to them. "He's agreed to join us." "Good," Victor replied. "This should help move our plans along faster." "Perhaps all of this would have sounded better coming straight from you," Joshua said. "No, it's still too early for that," Victor replied. "Are you sure that he's the right person to help us on this matter?" Joshua asked. "You bet he is," Victor replied as he and Anna got up and started walking away. "He's the perfect person for the job." "I guess I'll just have to take your word for it," Joshua replied. Anna turned and waved happily at Joshua as they walked away. Joshua waved back and sat there a little longer, thinking about their plan and what they wanted to accomplish. All he could do was wait and hope that it all worked out. Victor and Anna headed to the city sector of the campus and went directly to Derek's lab. When they entered the lab, Derek was sitting at his desk, waiting for them to return. "Welcome back," said Derek. "I finished compiling all the data from the preliminary match between Ethan Alexander and Tony Spencer. Do you want to see it?" "Yes," Victor replied. He approached the display table in the middle of the room. Derek opened the file, and images of the fight appeared on the screen. Detailed data readings and power measurements appeared around Ethan's image. Victor plugged a thumb drive into the table and opened a program to further analyze the data. "What are you doing?" Derek asked. "You know I don't like any foreign tech introduced to my system." "Stop worrying, Derek," said Victor. "This won't take long." The program analyzed the data collected from Ethan, measuring his energy pattern. It took a few seconds, but the display flashed a message telling Victor that his energy was a match. Victor smiled slightly, showing signs of excitement. "A match? A match for what?" Derek asked. "Keep running the data on the entire match, especially towards the end," said Victor. "Why?" Derek asked. "The power he showed peaked, and then it vanished suddenly," Victor explained as he walked toward the door to leave the lab. "Let's see if we can learn anything about why that happened." "You know, I could be more productive if you explain to me what all of this is for," said Derek. "You want me to watch this boys match and gather all of this data, and for what? There's something you're not telling me." "Look, everything will make sense to you soon," said Derek. "Just continue gathering data. I'll catch up with you two later." Derek and Anna stood in silence for a moment, and then Derek sighed in irritation and then walked back over to the desk. Anna watched him for a moment and could see the frustration in his demeanor. "You know he was telling the truth. He's going to tell us his plan," said Anna. "Yes, I know," Derek replied. Chapter 11. Victor hopped on the shuttle bus and headed for the A-rank territory. He pulled out his phone and went to the text chat he and the other A-rank captains were on. He sent them a text requesting an emergency meeting in 30 minutes. Each of the captains replied to the message agreeing to the meeting. The A-rank territory had its own dedicated administration building where the meeting would be held. The building stood 30 stories high and is where the academy was governed. It also reflects the prestige and excellence associated with its top-tier group. The building's exterior was a striking blend of contemporary architecture and elegant design, featuring sleek glass panels, polished stones, and metal accents. Surrounding the building was meticulously maintained landscaping with lush greenery, plants, and paved walkways leading to the main entrance. The grounds included shaded benches and small gardens. Inside the building, visitors were greeted by a spacious and sophisticated lobby that sets the tone for the rest of the interior. The lobby features high ceilings, large windows that flood the space with natural light, and modern furnishings. A central reception desk that is staffed by personnel ready to assist with administrative needs. Victor entered the lobby and was greeted by some of the students who knew him well. On the ground floor, the student administration offices handled all administrative tasks around the campus. The upper floors housed the offices of the 6 captains, their officers, other specialized faculty members, conference rooms, study areas, and resource centers. Victor took the elevator to the top floor. The top floor is an impressive grand meeting hall used for the elite members of the A-rank. From the elevator, access to the top floor is through a set of elegant double doors made of rich, dark wood with intricate carvings. Victor entered the space. The first thing that stands out the most are the majestic stone pillars that line the hall. The pillars not only provide support, but also add a touch of classical elegance to the room. Their placement is symmetrical, creating a sense of order and stability. The ceilings are high and vaulted, giving the room an expansive and open feel. Large skylights are strategically placed across the ceiling, allowing for natural light to flood the hall during the day. The skylights are equipped with adjustable shades that can control the amount of light, ensuring the hall is always perfectly lit for any occasion. The floors were made of polished marble, reflecting the light and enhancing the room's luxurious feel. In the center of the room was a large conference table. The table is oval-shaped, crafted from the finest dark mahogany wood. Victor was the first to arrive. He took his seat and sat in silence for a moment. He was anxious to get the meeting started. At the end of the month, the A-rank captains are scheduled to meet to discuss important matters pertaining to the academy. One of the points on the agenda was preparing for the mid-year tournament, the Delta Invitational. This event is a prestigious and highly anticipated event that takes place yearly. This grand spectacle showcases the incredible talent and skills of the students, from academics to engineering, and of course, combat. The Invitational is televised around the world and allows governments and corporations to view prospects they could potentially hire in the future. The event is broken up into 2 blocks. The first block will allow for normal students to showcase their talents, mainly in the R&D department. Students will have the opportunity to present their projects ranging from cutting-edge technology and engineering to groundbreaking research. The second block will host the annual tournament, which is the highlight of the Invitational. The tournament will consist of singles and 2-team competitors. Competitors are handpicked by captains of the A rank. Entry into this tournament is by selection only, highlighting the elite status of the participants. Victor already knew who his first pick would be. He just had to work behind the scenes to make sure Ethan qualified as a candidate. The other captains began to arrive one after the other. The 5th seat, Oliver Butler, and 4th seat, Sophie Reed, walked into the room and took a seat at the conference table. Oliver had short brown hair, black eyes, and he wore all black, but didn't wear a shirt under his captain's jacket. He had a very laid-back personality, not too serious about anything. He slouched in his seat as he yawned and stretched, complaining to himself that he had to come to this meeting. Sophie had long orange hair and orange eyes and freckles on her face. Her long black button-up captain's jacket matched the rest of her all-black attire. She was very serious, by-the-book type of person. Every meeting, she had a notebook with her and took detailed notes of their conversations and decisions. "Victor, I'm shocked to see you here early," said Sophie as she sat across from him. "Well, I'm eager to discuss the Invitational this year," Victor replied. "Why is that?" Oliver asked. "You have some kind of secret weapon to help give you the advantage?" "I think he believes that," Sophie added. "I heard he was actually present at the C-rank prelims." "Scouting new recruits?" Oliver asked in mild disgust. "There's nothing that untrained fresh faces can get you besides being bounced from the tournament on day 1. "Perhaps," said Victor confidently. "I guess we'll see." As they talked, the 3 remaining captains arrived. 6th seat, Michelle Lang. She had short, dark red hair that fell to her shoulders and blue eyes. She wore all black with red striping like the other captains, with black shorts and tights under the shorts. The 3rd seat, Emmanuel Marshall, who had short, turquoise-colored hair, and he always wore a pair of shades. He wore a long black jacket that looked like it was suited more for the winter, but it didn't make him overly hot in the summer months. The 1st seat, Eric Palmer, was tall in stature with a very toned physique. He had short brown hair and yellow eyes. He wore black slacks, a white button-down shirt, and suspenders under his black and red captain's jacket. They all took their seats in preparation for the meeting. "Good to see everyone here, and on time for a change," Eric said, addressing his fellow captains. "We all have busy schedules since it's the beginning of another school year. And since this wasn't a scheduled meeting, we'll keep this short. Victor, you called us all here. What did you want to discuss?" "I wanted to discuss changing the parameters on who is selected for the Delta Invitational," Victor explained. "You brought us all together for that," said Michelle. "This will be the topic of discussion at our official meeting a month from now. Why are you wasting time talking about this now?" "In the past, we haven't included first years in the selection pool, and I want to change that. And if we make this adjustment now instead of waiting, it will help us build our teams the way we want to, without restrictions." It is an interesting proposal, Emmanuel added. I'll say, if this was the case last year, then none of you would have stood a chance against the team that I would have put together, said Eric. Yes, everyone knows your prodigy, Tony Spencer, would have been your first pick, said Oliver. But he's a second year now, so you'll have him either way. I agree that this can make the tournament more interesting, said Sophie. Even though we're proud of what the tournament does for the tradition of this school, the focus is always heavily on the ratings it can draw. Everyone nodded their heads in agreement with Sophie's statement. They knew that last year's ratings were down from previous years, and the number one priority was driving up the ratings to attract more investors and sponsorships. Victor could sense things leaning in his favor, so he added more motivation to the conversation. And we all know that of the six of us, whoever team wins the tournament will get exclusive sponsorship to fund whatever project and charity of their choosing, said Victor. I like where your head's at, Victor, said Eric. Removing the stipulation that first years can't compete in the Invitational will spark a wildfire of news coverage for the Academy leading up to the tournament this winter. All in favor of making the change? Everyone raised their hand in agreement to the proposed adjustments to the parameters of the Delta Invitational. Victor was excited by the news, but he did his best not to show it. Very well. We will pass the changes and implement them for this coming invitational, said Eric. Thank you all for taking time to meet today.